When you're learning how to play acoustic guitar, it becomes very, very important for you to be able to master the usage of your guitar pick. Now, when we use the guitar pick, we call this flat picking. Okay, we're using the guitar pick to pick the strings. What we're going to focus on right now is single note picking. Okay, so instead of strumming chords, although we may do that here and there, what we're going to really focus on is trying to look at picking with the guitar pick. Now, there's really only two things that you can do with a guitar pick. You can pick downward, and you can pick upward. Okay? The trick for you is to figure out the most comfortable way of being able to utilize these two elements. Sometimes we use a constant down-up picking, which is called alternate picking. And what I use a lot is what I refer to as the up scoop, which is a lot of times when I'm doing something that's more arpeggiated, I might pick downward and then pop up at the end. Okay, so what I want to show you right now is let's just talk about alternate picking versus down picking. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is we need to understand just simple down picking. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take a pattern. And we're going to start playing through it. So let's just take the D chord, for instance. Okay? Now, again, it doesn't matter what chord or what scale you're using. We're just going to talk about the concept of picking through an element. So we're just going down. Okay? Now, what I want you to notice is I'm not doing this. Okay? I'm not forcing the pick through and getting kind of this jagged and irregular rhythm by doing that. What I am doing is I'm picking the pick up each time and then resetting. Now, again, there's a million things you can learn how to do, but this is what we're going to talk about right now is control of the down pick. Now, the first thing to understand is as I'm doing this, as I move this, most of my action is coming from the wrist as I pick. Okay? Sometimes it's easier to use the elbow when you're picking, but for me, when I'm doing this, it's easier for me to be more accurate at using the wrist here. Where I use the elbow more when I'm strumming. That sort of thing, okay? So, what I want you to do is think about staying really relaxed and really loose. The second thing I want you to think about is whether or not you want to hover or whether or not you want to stabilize, okay? Now, hovering means what you're going to do is you're basically going to brace right here where your elbow is. You're going to brace on the guitar, and you're going to hover. Your fingers are not going to touch the guitar. And you're going to play kind of out in the air like that. Stabilizing is you're going to take your pinky or your third finger or your middle finger or maybe a combination of the two or three, right? And you're just going to sort of use that as a stabilizer as you move through the guitar. You're kind of touching that guitar there. I'm touching the pick guard here. And I'm just kind of moving along using this as a guide. Now, what I tend to use is my third and my pinky. Sometimes it's just one or the other, but I don't really use the middle finger for that as much because it feels like I'm stretching out too much if I put all three fingers there. It's okay if you don't grab the guitar as you're playing, if you don't stabilize. It's perfectly fine. I just want you to be aware of that, okay? Because as you start doing these things, we're going to learn some basic fundamental movements, but in the bigger picture, what you want to be able to do is just figure out what is most comfortable for you organically as you're picking. Okay, so that's the first place for us to start. So we're just doing a motion of downs, and then what we're going to do now is we're going to start adding in what I call the up scoop. Okay, and what that means is, and I can't say that I do this all the time, but I would be willing to bet I do it 95% of the time. When I get to the end of whatever pattern I'm doing, if I'm doing down picking like this, okay, I do an up scoop or an up stroke at the very end to send my hand and my guitar pick back up so I can begin all over again. So instead of going down, 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 and winding up down here, and then I got to start all over, What I do is I play down, 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 up, which forces my hand and my pick back up. Which is way more comfortable for me. So I want you to try that, okay? Try doing, on this just plain old D chord, D major here, we're doing down, 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 up. Okay? So the first pattern that we did, whether or not you're hovering or whether or not you're stabilizing, okay, you're playing downs. Okay, or you're playing downs with an up scoop at the end, or an upstroke at the end, whatever you want to call it. I was just thinking of it as scooping because I'm really just kind of grabbing that pick and getting back to the top. Okay, now the third thing that you could do with this, which is going to be a little bit less efficient for this particular situation, although it can be very useful when playing scales, is true alternate picking, which is down, up, down, up. Okay, which again becomes very, very useful for other things. In this particular exercise, I wouldn't necessarily do that, but what I want you to do is I want you to practice all three of these things to get kind of comfortable with it. So you're going down, up, down, up. Now, as you do that, you need to kind of disconnect your thoughts a little bit from it because it feels really unusual, oftentimes. Okay, so again, it's a natural flow. Now, out of these three options that we've got for just simply picking through this D chord or whatever chord we're going to be using, what I need you to start thinking about is, A, what's most comfortable for you? Okay, and B, what seems like with the proper practice, it's going to be most practical for you, okay? Because sometimes, like if you've just started kind of learning how to do this sort of thing, you're probably going to think that the downs are the most comfortable because there's no variety, there's no fluctuation of the pattern, so it seems easier, which it is. The problem with it is that it's limiting because it's not very efficient in the bigger picture. So it's okay if that seems like it's the easiest pattern. But the next step then is to think about what is the most useful pattern that you think would be applicable to your guitar playing. Does that make sense? I want you to practice all three of them because as you keep going as a guitar player, you're going to need all three of these techniques for various things. Okay? But I just want you to be aware of that as you start learning how to do this. The other thing is to start thinking about hovering versus stabilizing. Okay, which one seems most comfortable to you? And again, that's probably going to be because of what you have done in the past. But then you also need to think about which one is more useful to you for your future, right? And if it's the same thing, that's perfectly fine. But I want you to be aware of that. Okay, because the whole thing with single note picking is that you want to be accurate. Okay, regardless of which pattern that you're doing, you want to be able to have a very good element of accuracy as you're doing it. Doesn't mean you're not going to make mistakes. We all make mistakes. Don't worry about that. It's just which one tends to flow better as you start working with it. So if I was to take these ideas you're going to start noticing as I'm playing that I'm really using a combination of all of them, but mostly the bottom two, which is the up scoop or the upstroke at the end, and then the alternate picking pattern depending on what I'm doing. Okay? And the reason the alternate picking starts happening is because every time I want to go back up, it's the same concept as the up scoop or the upstroke. Is that I want to get my pick back up so I can do something again in the bass strings. So that's why I'm heading back up. Right there, I'm going. So I'm playing down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. And the reason is because I'm constantly going back up, so I want that upstroke to get me there. See? So it's really important to think about that as you start learning single note picking or flat picking in this case, deciding which one is most comfortable for you.